So, hello, Chris. How are you?
Hello, hello. Welcome back. Yes, the Now at Night podcast. We meet again. How are you doing, Ezra? How's everything been going?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm good. I was actually recently at the RSA security conference
Wow.
not too long ago, so I feel like I'm still recovering from that. I know a lot of people are still recovering from knowledge, so shout out to all the presenters, the community, and speakers. K25 was probably our biggest and
Yep.
best one yet.
Yep.
All things AI, but other than that, I'm a little tired, but I'm here.
Fantastic. Love to hear it. And yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Knowledge and all the people that made that happen. That looked absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, definitely. There was a lot of pictures. I mean, I'm still combing through videos on LinkedIn, but definitely a lot of excitement and engagement for some new enhancements and new spaces and all things ServiceNow. So yeah, very excited for what's to come. But I
Absolutely.
think I think we've got a new guest that we're going to be, introducing here pretty
Yeah,
soon. I'm pretty
absolutely.
excited.
Yeah,
If
I
you
was
don't
actually,
mind, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, tell our listeners about how we come about interviewing Kristi. As
Yeah.
a lot of you might know or might not know, well, I used to be in pre-sales. Now I switched into being a Gen AI architect, which is under the organization of customer success. So I would consider myself pretty new into the customer success world. And when I shared that with you, you had the idea of reaching out to Kristi Faltorusso, who is a
Hmm.
fantastic individual. And we recommended or we reached out to see if she's willing to get on our podcast, and she gracefully agreed. So before we get to that, I actually want to hear from you, Chris. How did you meet Kristi?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. It's weird being on the other side now. You're asking me the questions.
Yes.
I knew this day would come. But when I first met Christy, it was actually in New York City. So I had gotten a new job with a SaaS company as a solution consultant. So like you, I was brand new to the sales space. I had never understood what it took to be a salesperson or a leader and
Hmm.
sell technology, right? Sell the internet, the software.
Hmm.
So this was my big first, big city job. And so I walked into my office in Manhattan and I came across Christy, and she was the vice president at the time for customer success.
Okay.
And I noticed that she had this like Sasquatch looking like plushy animal on her desk. And I don't know, I just like, this thing's so funny and cool. My name's Chris. And I introduced myself. I love the Sasquatch. What is this about? And we just connected from there. And she was just, a beam of light, and also a mentor for me to really help guide myself, not just through the city, but kind of understand how you build and scale customer success and services to help support adoption and growth across not just their customer base, but across the world. And she
Absolutely.
was just such an inspiration. So that's how I first met her. And that was back in, wow, I'm dating myself here. I want to say that was back in 2019 when I had first started at that company.
Wow.
And then she wasn't there for too much longer, which was sad. But during her time there, I mean, we were very much connected and, would
Nice.
chat. And, she was just such a great resource and a great person to just talk to in general, and
Absolutely.
loved our clients. I mean, talk about customer facing. If she wasn't in their house, I'd be surprised. She was just
Yeah, honestly.
absolutely MVP when it came to customer success. So
Yeah,
that's how I met her.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And honestly, I was telling her on the interview that our listeners are gonna be listening to next is I was actually very intimidated when I was looking at her LinkedIn and I knew that I was interviewing her. I was like, oh my God, that's like the closest I'll
So
ever get to a
impressive.
celebrity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hello, Christy. Thank you so much for taking the time to be our guest for today's episode.
I'm super excited to be here.
Pleasure is all ours. So, Christy, please give our audience a brief introduction on who you are and what you currently do.
Absolutely. So, Kristi Faltorusso, I'm currently the Chief Customer Officer at Client Success. We're a customer success management solution. We help our customers manage from new to renew that entire post sales journey. In addition to that, I also own my own advisory practice where I do coaching, consulting, advisory work, helping other early stage companies advance to the scale up stage.
Perfect, perfect. And for our listeners, do you want to give us a brief synopsis on how did your journey lead you into customer success?
Yes. So, like most folks who got started in customer success many years ago, you didn't have a traditional route and you didn't start your career in customer success. So,
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, I spent a decade in marketing.
Okay.
And it's very rare that people ever ask me about that because no one seems to care about what happened before customer success. But I did spend a decade of my career in marketing, specifically digital marketing, and even more specifically, search engine optimization. And I
Okay.
worked in-house, I worked in agencies, I owned my own agency, I was a professor at a university. I actually
Okay.
thought I'd be a CMO one day. Like that was going to be my career path.
Okay.
But there was a detour. And so while I was using a technology called Bright Edge at two
Mm-hmm.
different companies, eventually I said to them, hey, listen, if you ever open an office in New York, let me know. I will come work for you. And, having used their product for a couple years at two different companies, saw a lot of value in it. When they opened their office in New York, they did, in fact, hire me. And so that began my journey in customer success and was able to break in as a subject matter expert and product expert.
Perfect. And would you say that you specifically wanted to shift into customer success from a tech perspective, or was it more the idea that you just liked working with customers and you wanted to just follow the career path of being in customer success?
Oh gosh, none of the above. So one, I had no desire to work in tech. I didn't even know what SaaS stood for, to be very honest with you. So I really did kind of go into this a little blind. I was a
Okay.
subject matter expert, right? So I knew search engine optimization and I knew their product really well. So
Hmm.
it was easy for me to feel passionate about helping my peers have the same success that I
Hmm.
had using the technology. And so that was really the entire premise of me even exploring this as a career path. Under no
Hmm.
circumstances did I have any understanding of customer success. And now this is 13 years ago. So customer success looked very different than it does today, right? Like there was
Hmm.
nobody out there talking about it. You didn't have communities and webinars and podcasts and influencers, right? That just wasn't a thing. So I did go
Absolutely.
into this a bit blind and had to just figure it out as I went.
Perfect. And actually, let's take a step back. So, for our listeners, what is customer success and how does that exactly differ from when we say customer success versus customer support or even account management?
Okay. Well, so I think the challenge that we have in customer success is that customer success is a few different things. Customer
Okay.
success is an outcome, right? So
Okay.
it is something that we are trying to achieve with our customers. Customer
Hmm.
success is a discipline or a practice, and this is the operationalization of the post sales journey for our customers, where we are proactively designing motions to help our customers derive success. And then you've got
Okay.
customer success as a team, right? And
Okay.
so, really, the practice of customer success, though, is inherently just helping your customers achieve their goals with your solution. Now, the cherry on top is if they could have a good experience, but there's no guarantees that that's going to be the case. Our primary focus, though, is making sure at the end of the day, whatever they sought out to achieve, we are the ambassadors of that.
Perfect. And would you say that customer success is mostly a post-sales activity, or do you think that customer success has a place on the table once the conversation is basically with a prospect, with someone who hasn't heard of this product? So, do you think that customer success can be taken as something that we should consider from the get-go, or is it one of those things that we can rely on when something goes wrong or once we need to elevate the customer experience within the product that they have purchased?
So it definitely should be more of a proactive motion. And I do think there is a place for it in the pre-sales process. But I want to
Okay.
be explicitly clear, right? If you have a product that requires a demo environment, a trial, it is super complex. You should be relying on solutions engineers, right? Or technical
Mm-hmm.
account managers for that. That is
Mm-hmm.
not the role customer success should be playing in that process. Where I
Mm-hmm.
do see CS playing a strong role is once you get a verbal commit or somewhere down the line of where you know that we're leaning towards you as a solution, and a viable path forward for that customer, but they need clarity around what's going to happen. What will the experience look like? Who will I be working with? Right? What's the value I can expect? When
Mm-hmm.
they're seeking that level of clarity, or the company is trying to be proactive about sharing that, that is a great opportunity for customer success to kind of be available before the deal closes. So I do think
Okay.
it's important to distinguish what their role is and also where in that process they should be injected in.
Perfect. And do you think that customer success is something that usually followed based on a template that the company has? Or as you just mentioned, customer success is measured based on the outcomes that the customer has in mind once they purchase the product. And how do you basically find, I want to say, the line between the two?
So at the end of the day, your product should be solving a problem, right? And then whether you have
Absolutely.
1, 2, 5, 10 use cases, there is a way to solve all of those. And there should be ways to measure the fact that we did solve those, right? So
Absolutely.
regardless of who your customer is, you're solving similar-ish problems. And so they should be measurable to some extent by the same KPIs or metrics. Now, of course, your customers are going to all be starting at different places, and there's going to be variances to each of them, right? Every company thinks that they are a unicorn. And so, yes, there will be some need to lean in and understand truly what is important to them. But at the end of the day, there should always be high-level outcomes that we are targeting based on the solution that we're solving for.
And how do you measure that customer success health? Is it based on specific KPIs that the company that you work for should follow? Or is it more of the nature of the conversation that you're usually having with these customers, right? I don't know if you know, but I personally now have taken the switch from being in the pre-sale side to the post-sale side. So now I'm actually considered to be in customer success. And we have specific KPIs that we try to follow and see the customer adoption, specifically when it comes to generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say that works in your organization or in customer success in general?
Well, I don't think that listen, it's going to be unique to every organization. So there's not a one size fits all,
Absolutely.
right? Customer
Yeah.
success looks very different company to company. Now,
Hmm.
I do think that there are different metrics to look at. There is the company, the partnership health, right? So
Okay.
this is the health of the partnership, which could look into our relationship complexity, the sentiment that a customer has over us, how we're engaging, tracking to value, all of those things. And then you might have something like a generic health score that is based on certain elements like adoption, usage, engagement, right? Those types of things. And those are a bit more measurable and a little bit more subjective. So I do think that there's various things that you should be measuring. And I don't think any one of those should be the end all be all, because at the end of the day, all of those things could be green and your customer could still churn. All of those things could be
Absolutely.
red and your customer could still stay. So I do think that they are helpful indicators of maybe how you should intervene in supporting your customers. But at the end of the day, I mean, I honestly don't put too much weight on the health scores because they are so subjective, right? It is a metric based
Absolutely.
on behaviors that we can't dictate what that actually means.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. I've often found myself being engaged with customers who might have some sort of disconnection between the different teams that are working within that specific organization, right? So, how do you actually drive the product adoption between these different teams in a way where you are achieving the goals that each of these teams have, but at the same time without stepping on each other teams? Because there is always the potential of one team is ready to adopt right now versus another team who is ready to adopt in 3 months. And you need them both to adopt at the same time or in the same manner or at the same time in general so that you get the optimal outcome.
I mean, I think it's poor form for us to dictate how our customers should be adopting our solutions.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't be the ones driving the timeline.
Yes,
They are the ones that are going to dictate to us. So I think if we're concerned with them falling into our process, we are not doing it right, is going to be my first
absolutely.
sentiment.
Hmm.
With regards to that, though, you need internal champions. We are a vendor, we're a partner, we don't work internally. So
Hmm.
as best we can, we're going to advise, we're going to guide, we're going to enable, but they need somebody internally who is the change agent that is owning the change management, that is going to help facilitate and orchestrate that. As a vendor, it's very tough, right? It's always that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, and that is very much our reality. I can
Hmm.
train, enable, configure, I can do all of the things perfectly well on our end, and our customers could still not adopt, could not change behaviors, and not do ultimately what needs to be done in order for them to have success. So this is why I don't believe the onus is on us, to be honest. I think that as a customer who's making the investment, they should also be making the investment in the proper resources that are going to be necessary to drive that change forward.
And when you say that every customer basically should, or how every person in customer success should have someone who is basically the product champion within that organization, How do you find that champion? How do you keep that champion engaged so that they're always actually championing for your solution or your product?
It's a tough thing, right? It's not your main point of contact. You could be working with somebody and that person may never be your champion. And your champion is
Yeah.
very different than a main point of contact. And I talk about this a lot too, because people like to they like to use titles and roles interchangeably, and that's just not the case, right?
Yeah.
Your main point of contact can be a champion, but that doesn't make them a champion because they are your main point of contact. So, I mean, listen, it really does come down to nurturing. Your objectives and their objectives need to be aligned. And I've always found that when that is the case, there is a beautiful synergy there that usually a champion will emerge from. Because if your customer has very clear personal goals and objectives, right? Their job performance enhances, something benefits them, they are eligible for promotion because of the success of this thing, something benefits them personally. When they have a personal outcome, they are more likely to become a champion. So if you can really, as a CSM, understand the nuances between the company's goals and each persona's goals and lean into that, you're going to have a way better likelihood of designing a champion that will be able to do that for you.
Okay, so let me get that straight. So you're saying that when you are engaged in a conversation with a customer, you are looking for individuals who seem to have the same goals that the product is trying to solve, and then aligning with those basically objective, and then choosing that individual to be the champion for your success in that organization. Did I get right? Did I get that right?
It may work out that way. That would be beautiful if that was the case. It's very
Okay.
rare that is. I mean, the other thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person's goals need to be aligned with the goals that we are solving for. So, for
Okay.
example, I've worked with customers who have ended up being huge advocates for us, but their personal motivator maybe give like as somebody they wanted to build their own personal brand and get exposure. So me working with them and like opening doors and opportunities and saying, you know what, we've got a customer conference. I would love to have you speak at that. Right. It has nothing to do with our platform. It has nothing to do with the goals and solutions that we provide. It's a personal motivator that we were able to help feed for that individual. We gave them brand visibility. We are helping elevate their presence in their organization and in their community. So again, the goals don't need to be aligned. It's great if they are, but most likely they're not going to be because our personal motivators are different than our business motivators.
I see. And have you ever found yourself in a position where you are working in a company that maybe they purchased the product when there was some manager back in the day who was very satisfied and happy with the product? Then there was a shift, new management came in, new employees came in. You don't have any champions. You know that your product is going to solve the problem that usually that kind of organization has. So how do you go around by basically, I don't want to say convincing them of the value of the product, but how do you go around of saying, actually, you got that wrong, and let me show you how our product fits your organization well?
When you have an entire new team or even new leadership that comes in place, it's a resale motion. You
Mm-hmm.
have to sell it as if it is a net new deal. And I think that's the problem that most folks face is that they take for granted that there is an established partnership and they
Mm-hmm.
rely too comfortably on that. The
Mm-hmm.
reality is that this person doesn't know you. There's no relationship. They don't understand the value. They have not experienced the pain
Mm-hmm.
prior to your software being deployed. So the
Absolutely.
value is very much unknown and the business case might not be obvious. So
Mm-hmm.
it is our job to resell. And so this is, again, the same way that you would work to get a prospect to engage with you is the same way. You do not have the right to access these people. You have to earn the right. Right. So it is
Absolutely.
a way different motion. I see people who are just like, well, I'm emailing them and they're not responding or they're not showing up to the meetings. And it's like, of course not. They don't have to. Right. Like there's nothing here that would suggest that they should or could. So the
Yes.
same way you would have to start from scratch with a new sale, that is the same motion you're going to have to work on here. Now, it's great if someone facilitates the conversation and opens those doors, but just be prepared that that is very unlikely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do you feel like there is usually some sort of, I want to say, pushback from those customers? So a lot of customers don't want to be spending the money. They think that they can cut the budget by basically eliminating the product that you are working for. So they're constantly pushing against it. So how do you handle these conversations?
I mean, listen, this has to start way before you find yourself in this situation because at the end of the day, if your product is properly embedded and driving material value that has been socialized in the organization such that key stakeholders recognize and realize and feel the impact, it is very difficult for one individual to come in and displace you. Okay.
Absolutely.
But let's say that you didn't do your job and that isn't the case, and someone comes in, that is very much a reality, right? Because at the end of the day, they don't know that they need you. And so it's of course, it's very easy when you're just looking at dollars and cents on a piece of paper. I mean, I've come in and cut budgets and scaled back things and reprioritized my money because as a stakeholder, it's my budget, it's my P&L. And if I believe that there's other places that money is going to serve our business, that this technology is not bridging that gap, I'm going to do that. So
Absolutely.
yes, you can try to convince me, but again, selling somebody who's willing to be sold versus convincing somebody to do something that they've already decided is a very different, it's, lower success rate, very difficult to do.
Absolutely. So that takes me to a question of how do you work with the other parts of the organization internally? So how does customer success engage with sales? How do they engage with product? How do they engage with the support team?
So the thing I love most about customer success is I do believe we are the nucleus of the organization. We are unique in the sense that we are one of the only teams in the company that does really require collaboration with every other part of the business, right? Whether that is sales, finance, marketing, product, engineering, executive leadership team, every single part of the business needs to support customer success in order to facilitate what we're all working towards. So collaboration is going to look different at different levels, but I will say in order to orchestrate that well, it's got to come top down. The best organizations where I've seen strong collaboration for the benefit of the business and ultimately the customers are the ones where your executives are so strongly aligned. When you've got executives in the sales and marketing and CS that are all working towards the same goal. Now, that's difficult, and the larger the organization gets, the more difficult that becomes. But I will say is when you incentivize the right behavior and set the right objectives, that happens beautifully. So it's just a matter of making sure if we're all focused on the same thing, we should all be working in harmony to support that outcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do you think that, or from your experience, working in customer success, does that give you an inning in basically talking to the product into the development and what is coming on the roadmap? So you constantly are hearing frustrations from the customer, let's say. Do you go back to product and say, hey, this is a note that maybe we should work on that? Or do you think this is something you're more of a translator where you see where the product is headed and then you go back to the customer and tell them, well, maybe we don't have that now, but we'll get it in the future. So where do you see customer success sits in this scenario?
I mean, product definitely has a very unique challenge, and that's to satisfy all of the needs, right?
Absolutely.
You have sales is making demands, right? We need new innovation so we can close new deals. Customer success has needs to keep deals. Then you have the idea like we need to innovate and we already have a vision and a roadmap, so we have to keep driving in that direction. I don't envy the product team at all. Like that is not an organization that I want to sit in most days because the decisions are hard. But the best organizations do lean into their customer feedback and take the voice of customer, feature ideas. I do not say feature requests. This is not a request. We're not a bespoke custom dev shop. But if our customers have ideas and things that they need that would benefit them, we should be listening. Now, that said, we never commit to building everything. We want to hear their use cases. We have to understand, do we need this? Is it a blocker? Is it prohibitive? Will it facilitate growth? Will it facilitate retention? Do most of our customers need it? Or is it only this one customer asking? As a customer success team, though, it needs to be really well orchestrated through an individual who's going to be able to be that mouthpiece to the product team, because not everything can get built. Just like I said, I don't envy being in the product team. I will tell you very similarly, sitting in my role as our chief customer officer, it's equally hard because I look at a slew of feature ideas that come through from our customer base all the time, and I have to pick which ones make it and which ones don't. That's a lot of pressure, right? You want to make everybody happy. But at the end of the day, we don't have infinite resources, and not everything that is being asked makes sense for the product.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's take this again a step back. What do you think are the qualities and I want to say skills for a successful individual to be part of the customer success team?
My first one I'm going to say is business acumen. If you do not understand how a business runs, you're not going to be successful. We are not in the happiness department. I could care less. Like empathy, sure, we should all be empathetic, but it is not something I rely on. You need to have strong business acumen. I'd say the second thing is strong communication. It is the core of what we do, whether it is written, whether it is verbal, it is body language. I mean, like, we're working with people all day, every day. If you don't know how to
Absolutely.
effectively communicate and understand all of the nuances of that, it's going to be very difficult. The third is going to be intellectual curiosity. The best customer success managers understand that usually conversations are very surface level. It is our responsibility to dig deeper, to really understand where the question's coming from. Why do you need this? What will it do? How will it change? What is the impact? So folks that have an innate curiosity about them are always going to be more successful because they're going to get to the root of things. They're going to be able to help find the right solutions, not a solution. So I would say that would be my top three.
And do you think there is some sort of, I want to say, educational background that is needed to be in customer success? Or do you think that anyone from any field can fit into customer success?
I think that with those three top skills, your background does not matter, right? I came from a decade of marketing. My degree is in public relations, and I've worked in SaaS companies that are servicing engineers, BI, professionals, customer success, marketers. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I've been able to lean in and learn products, learn industries, all of that. I think if you have the core fundamental skills that are required to be successful, you can do the work. Now, I will say the skills will vary from company to company. Right? If you have a very, very technical product, you're going to have higher technical aptitude. I always say it's like on the scale of like, is your product Salesforce or is your product Calendly? If your product is Calendly, you probably don't need strong technical aptitude, right? Like having the business mindset is probably going to go a lot further. But if you're working with Salesforce, right, there is a level of complexity of their solution and customization that the technical nuances will always and inevitably come up in conversations, and you're going to need to be able to communicate that internally, externally, up and down an org. And so there's a lot more there that you might have to navigate.
And in the environment that we live in right now, it feels like there is a SaaS company that pops up every day, every second at this point, honestly. And what would be an advice for someone who is looking to specifically work in customer success at a SaaS company or any product company? I want to say, if you had to start everything today from scratch, how would you end up in a position in customer success?
So I personally wouldn't have done anything different, because the thing that made me most successful is I worked under a brilliant leader. And I would advise anybody who is breaking into customer success for your first role. A lot of people are going to take the first CS job that they can get. And I guess, listen, if I'm in desperate need of income, and I get that for a lot of folks, fine, you're going to take the job. But if you really want to have a career in customer success, the best thing you can do is get your degree in customer success. And the best way to do that is to work under a leader who understands the discipline of customer success, who has built out a strong motion. Coming into an early stage Series A company where customer success is not defined is not where you cut your teeth in customer success. You're not learning best practices. You're being tasked with building something you've never even seen. So for me, if I'm going to advise anybody who's trying to break in, the best thing to go is to an established company under a strong leader where you're going to be taught what great looks like and learn that motion. Now, once you've done that for a little while, then you can go to any stage company, right? You want to go big, you want to go small, fine. But you need a couple years under a great leader who's going to teach you and coach you on what to do.
That is actually a great point. I was recently listening to a podcast with the co-founder of Skims, the company, and she was asked about whether there is a need for an individual to have a mentor, no matter what they're doing. In her specific example, it was basically mentorship in fashion and mentorship in manufacturing. And she said she doesn't really think that you need to go and ask someone to be your mentor. She had the idea that you can basically observe what everyone around you in an organization or anyone that you respect enough who does a specific job, and mentor or basically shadow them and see how they're doing their job. And then based on their actions and how they handle things and what they say and what they do, she was even saying down to what they wear in specific kind of environment, she would copy that and then take that basically to the next level. And she kind of said that all of those people collectively would accumulate to a single mentor. So I found that very much, I want to say, on parallel of what you just said. So just I thought sharing.
And that's why working in a good organization or the right organization with the right people can make or break you. Because
Absolutely.
on the flip side of that, think about it. If you're working in an environment where you have people who are not helpful, not intelligent, don't get it, right? Like all of the opposites of things you do not want to emulate, bad leaders, toxic culture. If you learn in that environment, now that becomes learned behavior, and you think that's what good looks like, and you're going to take that with you, it will be
Absolutely.
prohibitive in your success long term.
No, absolutely. So let's get to the hard question here. What do you think is the hardest part about being in customer success?
Prioritization. Our game of whack-a-mole every day is taxing.
Okay.
We are always navigating competing priorities, right? It's very rare, even if you're an enterprise strategic CSM and you've got 3 customers, those 3 customers still have a whole bunch of things that are going on all day, every day, in addition to
Mm-hmm.
all the things that you're navigating internally. I think the hardest thing is, understanding how to manage all that, how to prioritize things, how to say no. That's all
Mm-hmm.
part of it. I think time is our greatest currency, and it's something we don't have enough of, and we try to give it to everybody all the time. People just don't know how to balance that. And I think prioritization is something that a lot of folks struggle with. And that's why we see burnout happening at the rate it is.
That is a great segue into my next question. So, being this successful, um, how do you balance your personal life versus your career?
Um, I don't think that there's balance. I think that there is prioritization, just as I mentioned.
Nice.
Um, there is a reason and a season for everything, right? When my daughter was 3, she needed me more, right? I
Yeah.
had to be there for her. I had to feed her and take care of her and like do all the things. My daughter's 17 now, right? She doesn't need me. She's sitting in her room doing her homework. I can go and I can use my time as I see
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah.
So, I think it differs for everybody. And right now, I'm in a season of my life where I can prioritize giving my career more focus because I have the
Nice.
bandwidth. And I prioritize what's important to me and what gives me and fuels me and makes, what feeds my passions. And for me, building something that is my own makes me excited. It fuels me. And
Nice.
so I don't look at that as work. So, right now, I prioritize things that are important. If my family needs me, if we need to be, we're prioritizing time together, great. I do that. I make sure that every day, no matter what, I prioritize my health and wellness. And so that means making
Absolutely.
time to work out, making time to make sure that I fuel myself properly and I take care of that. That is important. And my mental health, right? So
Absolutely.
making sure that I leave some time in my day to meditate, to reflect, to journal, to whatever, because that is important as well. So, but balance,
Absolutely.
no 2 days look the same, right? Tomorrow, my kid has an award ceremony. I'm going to have to go to that, which means my day is going to end a little bit earlier and I'm going to have to
That's fine.
prioritize going to that. And the next day it'll look different again. So
Yeah.
it's a juggling act, right? Balance looks and feels different for everybody at different stages of their life and even just day to day.
Absolutely. And I can't honestly stress that enough. A big message I have for everyone is mental health. I think honestly it trumps a lot of different things in this life. And I think that there is this trend where everyone wants to get to the burnout level. So people just want to work, 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 and never prioritize their own health and their own mental health, which eventually leads them to a place of failure. So I think honestly, prioritizing your mental health, your physical health, your family, your friends, and all of that will eventually all be, I want to say, the wood that feeds the fire of your career that basically makes it grow better and bigger.
I absolutely agree. And I think the what people do need to realize though is that that prioritization of that doesn't come in a pretty little box, right? And it's not going to be
Absolutely.
consistent day to day.
Yeah.
You can prioritize yourself by taking a 10-minute walk in the
Yeah.
middle of lunch, right? Like, so
Absolutely.
what I don't want folks to over index on, especially at different stages of their life, is like, oh, well, I need to create balance and boundaries. And that means my day starts at 9 and ends at 5. And I will
Mhm.
tell you, if that is the way that you're thinking about your career, especially if you're an early stage professional, it's not going to work that way. It's not as clear cut and dry. And so you need to be flexible,
Yeah.
right? And you need to understand, again, going back to the priorities. Yes, you always want to prioritize yourself, but prioritizing yourself doesn't mean foregoing opportunities and being able to prioritize also what's important or maybe important in your professional life as well.
No, absolutely. And I've always said that myself. I used to honestly sometimes find myself working till like 10 p.m. every day. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to work until 10 p.m. every day. Maybe that needs to happen once or twice a week, and that is so
Right.
fine. But at other days, I'm actually going to stop working at 5 p.m. I'm just going to forget about what I had to do that day. And I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to go see my friend for a drink, or I'm going to go have
Yep.
dinner with my family. So completely echoing on that. And I think that people need to understand that there are trends in the work. I want to say balance life. So
Yeah.
some seasons we're very busy. Some seasons we barely have time to eat. Some seasons we have plenty of time to eat.
Right.
So yeah. So that is a great point. Um, Finally, do you have any tips for individuals who are starting their careers right now, whether that was in customer success or in other fields?
The most important thing you can do is build your network. I think folks rely on this too much when it's too late, right? You're looking for a job, you're laid off, you're looking for promotion, right? Then we want to go and draw on our network, but
Yeah,
you can't pull from a well that's empty. So my advice to anybody at any stage in their career is prioritize your network, and that means giving as much as you're asking. Build
absolutely.
real, authentic relationships with people, and remember that's what it's all about. But if that is not something that you're doing right now, I would definitely highly encourage that. And I would also say your network extends well beyond the people that you're working with in your day job. So use everything, communities, social media platforms, whatever, to extend well beyond that, because those will be the people that will fuel you. They will be your mentors. They will be your guides. They will open opportunities for you. When you need them, they will be there.
Absolutely. Now, the second question would be, what advice do you have for women who are in tech and women who are interested in joining customer success specifically?
Oh, I like to not put women in their own bucket, but I would say, listen, at the end of the day, you have to have confidence. And confidence is not something you have or you don't have. Confidence is something that it's a skill you can build on. It comes from feeling comfortable with certain things. And so the thing I see the most women struggle with is that confidence and how they show up in meetings, how they show up with teams, themselves at home, personally, professionally, in all areas. And so the number one thing I would say, focus on developing your confidence, because that will transcend your opportunities, and that will definitely be the propeller for your career.
Absolutely. Well, I really want to thank you, Kristi, for your time today. Honestly, looking through your LinkedIn, I was very intimidated before meeting you. I was like, oh my God, I just started my career in customer success. I don't know if I'm ready to interview Kristi, but it's been an
No.
absolute pleasure, honestly. And I'm definitely going to take a lot of the advice that you had here into the next couple of years of my career in customer success. And hopefully one day I'll get to a point where I have my own practice. Who knows?
Yeah, and enjoy the journey. I mean, honestly, it's a privilege and an honor to do the work that we get to do, right? At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
think about it. There are people, there are companies that are relying on us to drive their organizations forward, and we are the stewards of that success. So
Mhm.
take the job seriously, but have fun with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I keep saying, like, I get asked this a lot because I was in pre-sales for 5 years before I switched, and everyone was wondering why did I make that switch? And
Mhm.
honestly, the reason was I love being in front of the customer. I love talking to the customer. I love to know what the issue is. I'm a problem solver, unfortunately. And sometimes that basically feeds into me thinking about their problem over and over and over and over until I find a solution. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to be. And generative AI was also on top of my agenda. And I was like, you know what? Two birds, one stone. Here I am in front of the customer. Here I'm talking about something I love. And yeah, that's another image or another message I try to have our listeners really adhere to, which is find something that you love, find something that you enjoy, find the skills that you naturally are good at, improve on them, and find something in tech or not in tech, in any field, and basically smuggle your way into there until you reach all the way to the top. So,
I
hallelujah to
think it's
that.
sound advice. Sound advice.
Yeah. Thank you again, Christy. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about Kristi. I mean, you mentioned, right, MVP, VIP, she's everything under the sun, right? I think she holds a certification or board member for everything I could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
obviously she breathes customer success.
Mhm.
And something that I think a lot of us tend to forget about, how we can really take that approach to maximize being in front of our customers and driving those successful outcomes. I'm curious, Nazar, what you thought, how Kristi actually goes through and navigates those successful customer outcomes. What did you think of her overall responses and how she observes the world as we see success today?
To be honest with you, she said a big part of being in customer success is being a great communicator. And honestly, she is one hell of a person to lead by example, because every question I would ask her, the way she elaborates her answers, the way that she answers questions is just magnificent. I honestly told her toward the end that I'll probably would have to listen to this interview just a couple of times to kind of take some of the ways that she answered questions and her tips, and actually learn it myself as someone who is newly into customer success. So I'm completely, honestly, I want to say starstruck meeting Kristi. She was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, same, right? I think, like I said, I think she's that beam of light. And I think you bring that presence and that kind of authority into a room when you're talking to a customer. I think it's so important to focus on not just the limitations, but how do I transform this negative situation into an opportunity to improve and inspire you?
No, absolutely.
And I think Kristi spoke to that, right? She spoke to her methodology and how she frames conversations with clients and how she highlights progress and wins.
Absolutely.
Because, failing forward is what I like to think of. I don't think we fail. I think we fail
Absolutely,
forward.
yeah.
And I think every lesson that is learned can be demonstrated more effectively by those customer experiences. And so I think Kristi is a testament to that, as you said, starstruck. I would love to get her signature, so we might need to get that, make a trip necessary, and make sure we take a trip for that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, I think absolutely spot on, just with the overall synopsis of her mentality and her mindset. I think you have to wake up and just be hungry to provide that level of service every day, and every day is going to be a new challenge. But that's the beauty of that customer experience is you don't want to wait for a problem to arise. Just ask the question, how can
Yeah,
I
and
help?
honestly, her entire thing about like prioritization and how you prioritize issues that you see with the customer, or even how you
Yeah.
prioritize your own work to life balance. Some days we might have more work than family, and that's okay. Some days we might have more family than work, and that is absolutely okay. There isn't a right or wrong way of doing things as long as you are making sure that you are prioritizing your own self well-being, your own self-health, your family health, your relationships, and your work. I think that is the balance that we all achieve to get to. And her key into that was prioritization, which is something I definitely need to be working on.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I wrote that down, prioritization, because I think we get complacent when it comes to prioritizing things that are most important to, not just mental health, but just overall success, right? And that's what customer
Absolutely.
success is all about, is where do I prioritize that first impression and how do I make it count? Or how do I prioritize, the podcast? How do I prioritize my personal and professional well-being? And
Absolutely.
that prioritization is so powerful. And I think, the way Kristi brings that into her regular rapport each day, she ensures that she not only has a voice, but she puts a brand behind that voice to remain consistent regardless of the channel she's speaking through. And I think
Absolutely.
that's what I love about our podcast, Nazar, is we're continuously providing a multi-channel approach, but it's consistent. And
Yeah,
Kristi, through her channels, are providing customer success through multi-channel consistency. And that's what it is. It's prioritization plus the consistency that enforces those priorities. So well said. I think that's exactly it. And I think we need to be advocates for each other and ourselves. And I think that will, endure a much longer lasting experience with those customers and even relationships we have personally. So
absolutely.
I think those are all, well stated, observations, and definitely something that Kristi lives and breathes, which we can absolutely appreciate.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I'm taking a lot of notes.
Yeah, I'll definitely be working on that. I couldn't have said that any better, Chris.
Yeah. So, I think, at the end of the day, when we think about customer success and services and support, ironically, I came from a background where I was just, the IT help desk, kind of admin. And a lot of folks don't think, well, that's not really customer success. Well, it really is.
Yeah.
Every role that we
Yep.
have in general, right? there
be
is a
customer success. Yeah,
communication,
absolutely.
there's strategies to
Absolutely.
be
Absolutely.
tactical and how you know, build stronger relationships, how you demonstrate that effectively, and then ultimately drive better outcomes for, you know, your clients and for the outcomes you're looking to proliferate. So
Yeah.
I think what Kristi's mission statement here is not just, you know, overseeing overall success, but being really responsible and accountable to achieve that customer success and that outcome all the way through, because ultimately that's what the positive experience will achieve, right? Just like when we
Absolutely.
get a new car, a house, right, a dog, it's you're achieving something of greatness and an impact, but it's because you remain consistent and you continue to drive towards that success, and that's really what customer success is all about,
Yeah.
is prioritizing that consistency. So
Yeah.
any thoughts there too, Nasser?
Yeah, I was just going to add to the idea that customer success is not a job that can only be done through the customer success team. I think customer
Oh, well
success is
said.
something
Love
that
that.
everyone in the company is
Love
responsible
that.
for, from the
Mhm.
executive all the way down to individuals who might never meet that customer, because any interaction that you have directly or indirectly with this customer can actually be represented or can basically represent the customer satisfaction and can
Yeah.
be considered customer success. So don't let the title of customer success fool you. Customer success is an image and an idea that everyone in the organization should have on top of their mind.
Absolutely. Well stated. Nothing further to add there, Your Honor. That was incredible. Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
bad.
So, you know, I think with closing statements and remarks here, I think really the moral of this podcast is that, you know, prioritizing your success should always come first.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, right, personal, professional, your success is most important. You're responsible for that success. And when you show up, you're able to glow up and bring that
Hmm.
success to other customers. And that's the experience that you want to have and that we're all striving for. So know that
Absolutely.
you have that voice.
Hmm.
And I'm sure Kristi would love to hear from our listeners as well. She's always active in the space, in the community. Feel free to, you know, connect with her on LinkedIn. She's just such an advocate to navigate this world of customer success and leadership. So I was really honored and humbled that she was able to join us on the Now and
Absolutely.
Now podcast.
Absolutely. And again, I want to thank her and thank our listeners for today's episode. This was an absolutely fantastic experience, and I'm definitely looking forward for more stars that we interview on this show.
Absolutely. Let's get starstruck again.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for
Thanks
listening to the
all.
Now and Now podcast. Take care.
Bye.